Three, two, one. Hey Adam, how you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
I know you're a busy man, but I've been asking everybody this, to start off with. How are you doing with the coronavirus? How has it affected you and your work, and
Yeah.
is your family staying safe?
Yeah, it's definitely turned my world upside down.
Yes.
To put it simply, my wife Holly and I were moving back to LA on March 27.
Right.
So I think it was about March, I'm going to say 16, where it was obvious that wasn't going to happen. It kind of changed very quickly in the space of a few days.
Yeah.
And so I had a whole, touring throughout the US for the whole year.
Yeah.
So that's all disappeared. And, we had a house lined up in Los Angeles and all those sort of things. So, it's changed very radically. However, we are stoked that we got, stuck in Australia.
Yeah.
And in Newcastle. And
such a shame, isn't it?
Yeah. And while, I have known friends around the world that have contracted it and had it.
Oh.
I haven't known anyone firsthand that's died, but I know people that have been on respirators for 8 weeks and in a coma and getting through it. So, we were just super thankful for the situation we had of being able to be in Newcastle and be relatively safe and, even take advantage of the situation to be able to exercise and have a forced holiday in a way.
Yes.
Just to, not have the stress of the constant hustle of booking work for the future. So it was sort of, it was almost a much needed rest in a lot of ways. Yeah. Which wasn't the case for many people, but that's, what it was personally for me.
And the US seemed to cop it really hard as well. Actually, I had planned to go there as well. I was actually right in the middle of it. I actually live in Shanghai at the moment. So the plan was for me to go to, because I don't like coming back to Australia just for nothing. Just I can see my family anytime. So I wanted to go to the US, and then they stopped it just before the cutoff, the lockdown. So but that's a shame that a couple of people that have had the coronavirus. Are they in the US or were they here?
I've people I know in the US, people I know in Spain, and the UK as well, and Poland. Yeah, so from all over, I guess. Yeah.
So did you actually start your tour in the US?
No, we never took off. So it was like, I think our flight was March 27 back to the US.
Right.
And I remember getting like an email. There was a festival like the weekend after I got there. I was playing in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Right. And I remember the organizer sort of emailed me saying, I don't know if this is going to happen. I'm not sure. And then I was thinking, no, it's fine. Come on. But it's just a virus. And then that was on a Wednesday. And I know by the Friday, it was like, no one's going anywhere ever in the world's locking down. Yeah. So it happened in the space of 2 days. It was like, you guys were overreacting in my head to, we're not going anywhere. So
right. And have those gigs, have those shows now been rescheduled now, or are they just automatically being cancelled?
A lot of it for me were just cancelled. They're not, and to be perfectly honest, there's no knowledge of when you can reschedule anything.
Yeah, that's true.
But, I know you can travel to the US under very special circumstances, but I'm not really interested in doing that right now. And there's no venues open in the US yet.
Yeah.
There's no music happening on a ticketed sort of scale, and everything I do is a ticketed event usually. So, if tickets don't sell, I don't get paid. So I can't really.
That's right.
Warrant that sort of.
So have you taken advantage of this sort of thing where everybody, where it's online now? Have you actually started doing online shows or like?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a few. Sort of started to get into the online show thing. Working out the technicalities of it as well.
Yes.
Especially with Australian internet speeds being a little bit difficult to stream high quality video and audio.
Yes.
And then part of it realizing that actually that's not the point, and the way a live show online works sometimes better is that they are lo-fi, and it is about like communicating with someone and answering questions on screen more so, rather than trying to present this concert like image in the corner of your bedroom.
Because it just seems very interesting, like with our broadband and trying to sync up 4 people in 4 different places, trying to put the music together.
Well, that sort of thing doesn't happen. Like if you see things of people playing online together, that's not real time. The technology and speed doesn't exist for that yet. I've heard of one software that it will allow possibly for you to play in time with someone if you're within like a 50-kilometer radius anyway. So like the whole network is close enough that it's not jumping around too much. And that's people in the US. I don't think Australian speeds would keep up with that. But, I've done quite a few collaborative videos, but they actually are quite a bit of work. You basically have to play along to someone else's video and then record yourself doing it and video it and then stitch it all together. And they're actually, they're a good, couple of hours in each 1-minute Instagram video to make those look, well, make them sound right, actually, first and foremost. And then, getting all the videos and things to sync, they're quite a bit of work.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And have you been writing new material in this period, or just sort of working out planning for the future? Or
well, I've been writing some new material. Nothing really has stuck yet, but I did record a new album in December in LA. So it was meant to be released in May, but now is August. So it was a lot of the time of working out how to go about releasing that without touring, and with all the way press is working in the world, and how so much of music gets released with Northern Hemisphere summer festivals and that aren't happening now.
Yes.
So it was just a rejig. So a lot of my time has actually been just getting that finished and sorted. So yeah.
And gone are the days now, like you said before, how it's all about CD sales. Now it's all like online and making sure that you've got your video clips up so people can see that. So you've noticed that a bit of a change now, like with the modern sort of...
Well, I think that's been the way actually for the past few years. And, I've never had the team around me. I'm self-managed. I'm my own agent. I pretty much do everything myself at this stage still. So I've never been able to like tour an album per se anyway. It's not like, here's my new album and here's the tour named after that album. It just hasn't really worked that way. So the way the digital thing works is that I'm usually doing it in between gigs and just trying to work it out. But having not had shows and gigs to do and traveling, I've actually had the time to sort of make some videos and do some things and think about how I might release stuff. So it reaches the most amount of people as possible. But there's still a lot of, actually through all of it, I have been selling CD and vinyl still, funnily enough. Like people have been, from all over the world have been wanting to actually get that stuff and dig a bit back into the physical formats while they're at home, I guess.
I think vinyl's coming back. Making a resurgence. You go into like a music store, and I went to JB Hi-Fi a couple of weeks ago, and the first 5 rows were just full of vinyl, and that's great. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think from personal experience, like most people, if they want to buy music now, they actually want the product and the feeling of it. So
yes.
It's very rare that anyone has a CD player anymore. Like, I know my only CD player is in my car.
Yes.
Now, I don't even burn a CD when I listen to the final mix of my album anymore. That used to be the thing. You'd burn it onto a CD and take it for a drive in the car.
Yeah.
But now, I just put it on my phone. It's probably even playing from Dropbox from the cloud, just so I can, listen to it while I drive around. But people, especially on tour, still buy CDs if they don't have anything else, because they sort of just want to take something physical home sometimes. And then vinyl is just the big expression of that, because it's this big, beautiful artwork. If you have a great system, then it does sound amazing. Yeah. If you've gone to Audi and bought the vinyl player on $30 on special, I know it sounds terrible versus even what you're going to stream online, but it is a cool thing to have. I never thought I'd have my music on records. It's interesting that it's turned out that way.
That's really good. And do you have a player, like a record player?
Oh, I don't. I travel so much. Like, we are so light, and the most of what I own is recording equipment and guitars. Right. So and we travel so much that we haven't had a consistent house now for it's almost 3 years. That was actually one of the things we were excited about in LA, was that we were finally getting a place that was ours for a while.
Right.
That we could set up a little.
And how are you sort of balancing sort of life with being married yourself, and how do you balance that with having no agent or management? How do you balance that?
It's different. It's just unpredictable. Is the easiest way.
Yes,
I can sort of put it. And the music industry has changed significantly. From when I started playing professionally, 22 years ago now. Yes. The fact that you can release your own records and they're on essentially in the same store as anyone, when you're talking Spotify or Apple Music, I couldn't have my music in the Sanity store when I was a kid,
yes.
Unless I had a label. So having that sort of somewhat equal playing field has opened the world up and allowed me to continue really being a musician, despite not having, the team around me. And I think, the thing is, it is just unpredictable. You talk about planning for the future. It just, you sort of make these loose plans, but they're always can be turned upside down. And, this year is prime example of that.
And I don't think anybody could predicted this.
Yeah. And definitely it's also, a time of going, oh, well, what am I doing? Are gigs going to be part of our future? Are people going to be part of that? Because myself and actually most musicians now, no matter where they're at, the bulk of their income actually comes from performance, not from anything else. So, the whole music industry, it's going to be interesting to see how it comes through.
And with the modern music as well, a lot of the people have had to go out, to make that income. It's sort of a little difficult now with the downloads and the illegal downloading. So to going out and playing, like you said before, and to have that ticket, is the best way to make that money. So to have it stopped is, but I guess that's a good thing that it makes the bands go out and play more, play live, instead of just sort of making and creating music.
It's definitely a huge part of it. So it's cool that where it'll end up, whether anyone will want to be in a room close proximity to someone you don't know anymore, I'm not sure.
And let's hope that they I see sporting events now, they're starting to have crowds. I think New Zealand had 20,000 at a rugby union game on the weekend. So fingers crossed that transfers over to music as well.
Yeah, music is a little different, and there's already very weird guidelines around it. Like, especially because so much of it's in licensed alcohol venues and things. So, yeah, I think it'll be quite a while before it actually gets back to a standard. Like, and most venues, especially, well, it is global, but my understanding is more from Australia. Like, they just cannot operate on the current numbers and the amount of space you got to have. Yeah, without, charging, $100 a ticket to see your local band. Yeah. It's like, sometimes, like, it sounds ridiculous, but by the time you pay the venue and the staff and the musicians, it's going to be, it could come out looking a little bit different.
Yes. Well, maybe at the start it might be expensive, but you'll definitely see. I think it'll be, it's kind of good in a way, because people will want to go out and see live music and go out.
That is the hope.
Yeah. So they've been stuck at home for 4 or 5 months. Come on, I want to go out and watch your band. So fingers crossed that happens. Yeah. So Adam, let's go way back. Let's go way back to so you grew up a local boy from Newcastle as well. Oh, whereabouts were you born in Newcastle?
Oh, well, like the hospital?
No, I mean
Royal Newcastle Hospital.
Royal Newcastle. Right. Getting very specific.
Charlestown, I grew up in.
Right, you grew up in Charlestown, right? And did your parents or did your family have sort of a musical background, like when you were a young kid, or
not? So no one played. Right. My mum she could play like a little bit of piano.
Yes.
And my dad's always been a massive music fan, but he can't play anything.
Right.
But I think it was just because of friends of family. My mum sent me to organ lessons when I was 4.
Right.
So I had to learn like the 2-stage organ with the pedals.
Oh, wow.
So I did that from 4 years old. Yeah.
Right. And then when did you sort of start to pick up a guitar? Did you have like any school bands, or is that how it all started?
So I started to pick up the guitar when I was about 8. Because my dad did have a guitar. He was a school teacher, and so he had a guitar that he had to learn to play something at teachers' college.
Right.
Back in the day, you had to learn a musical instrument. So there was a guitar in our house, and I picked it up, and I worked my way around it pretty quickly. Like, it made sense to me, which was amazing. And then, so that was still like primary school. So there wasn't really many people playing music.
Yes.
And then by the time, I was in high school, which was mid-90s, and everyone was into Nirvana and the whole sort of grunge scene, no one wanted me in their band because I was too good. They're like, nah, we don't want you. Yeah. So unfortunately, I sort of missed the whole high school band thing until...
Well, you couldn't play... they wouldn't let you play 3 chords.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to either.
Yeah, so that's true. Yeah.
It was sort of this weird thing of where I wasn't allowed to be in the bands because I made everyone look bad.
Yes.
Yeah. So it wasn't until, the guys in high school got sort of good enough to play like Chili Peppers stuff and Rage Against the Machine that then they went, oh yeah, now we need you to play.
You come in, need to get some solos happening. Yeah. So was it a band that you no band? You just playing by yourself at that stage?
For most of high school, I was just playing by myself. So I was, from when I was like 8 or 9, I got a Tommy Emmanuel cassette, like a very famous Australian guitarist who's now hugely famous around the world. And I just loved it because I liked that he didn't sing, because when I was young, I couldn't sing because my voice hadn't broken. I sounded terrible. Yeah. So I just thought I sounded exactly the same. So I just learned all that stuff when I was a kid, like really young. And that sort of created the foundation of everything. Yeah, that I'm into now.
And do you remember your first gig that you actually played? And can you remember how much your first gig was? How much you got paid for?
Well, I did a lot of performing in high school still. So I was in all the high school, like the official bands, like the high school jazz band.
Right.
And, our school did like performances. I remember like I played at the Opera House when I was 15 in a small like rock band that was put together by the school.
Wow.
Yeah, but the actual first like gig in a pub, I'm thinking it was with this band I was in that was called Liquefaction. Right. And so we formed towards the end of high school. We all went to different schools, actually. We met through this combined schools concerts they have in Newcastle called Starstruck.
Oh, yes.
And and so we all went to different schools, and we would have played SJs like when we were all just 18. One of us wasn't 18. He was young, but he was like 16, but we didn't tell anyone. And
I think they were pretty lenient back then.
I'm guessing we got $100 or something,
Right.
So things haven't changed that much.
and I also can remember, was that at the stage there where you were working at the music shop at Lambton?
Yeah.
This is where I remember meeting you a couple of times. I always remember coming in and, I was in my, when it was the grunge, mine was more the heavy metal.
Cool.
So I remember going in and asking you for like the thickest pick and the thickest strings, and you're going, you know what, you don't really need that to have a heavy sound. It's like, but that's what it says. This is all my favorite guitar players are doing. So I want the heaviest, But
I would have gone somewhere in the middle. I know, like the pick I use now is like a 3mm thick one. Like most people. Oh no, it's 3mm. Like most people freak out about that. And
wow.
I do like heavy strings as well. But if you want to play fast, I don't know. But yes, that was that shop is amazing. So
and how long did you work there for? Because it seemed to me as if you had a lot of freedom to sort of play your music, do your studies,
Yeah, I was only ever there like 2 days a week.
Right.
But it was about 7 years, like from and it was really amazing because that store has this history of actually employing great musicians, like really well-known Newcastle musicians. You see the people that have like just worked there in the retail store, and it has that community around it as well of like, I don't know, like quality musicians. And I learnt so much there, like musically and business, like wise, not from being in the store business wise, but like the people that would come in and like the musicians I met there. I think it gave me a lot of cred in the Newcastle scene as well in hometown, because I met all these older guys that I never would have met otherwise.
So, for example, who were you meeting there that were coming through? Was touring bands coming through there as well, like to get equipment?
No, not really, to be honest. Okay. It was more like, the older, just Newcastle guys. For example, the guy that's still there is working there is a guy named Paul Carroll, who Paul would have been there. He might have been there 25 years now. I'm not sure. Yep. But Paul, is a bit of a local surfing legend as well.
Right.
But he is such an incredible guitar player, and when he plays, he sounds like Eric Clapton.
Yes.
And I remember, just because we were hanging out at the store in the day, I would go and jam with his band, which on the weekends then, and I remember them thinking they were all old, and they're my age now. At the time, but I remember just because I was a bit of a gun, and I could play anything, and I remember I could play all the notes really fast, and then Paul would play something and it would just sound 1,000 times better than me. So, I just would learn things like that. And then there would be guys that would come in and bring me CDs, bring me music. I never really had that growing up, where I had someone that would expose me to something outside of the ordinary in a way. You know, like I got into Hendrix when I was 12 or 13, but, you know, that was about as avant-garde as you could find, because the access to music wasn't as easy then. So, you know, having someone that would bring me in these just random like jazz artists and jazz guitarists and things every couple of weeks, and they just lend them to me so I could check out. It just opened my world to this all this music that I would never have heard otherwise. Yes. So it was really incredible, and it's that place is a tough place to leave, and I still help them with social media and things even now, whilst on the road, just because I like being a part of it. And yeah, they actually moved out of that store a few weeks ago, and it was pretty sad. Yeah.
Oh, right.
So just moving on to bigger premises and that sort of thing. But yeah, I managed just randomly, because it happened during all the lockdowns, to walk into the store the day they were handing over the keys, and it was empty. And so seeing it empty was a bit sad for me.
Real. Wow.
Yeah.
Because I got my Gibson there. I got my my JCM 800 old school amp. That got me travel. It took me a long way. That I used that for years. Had such a nice, very nice, warm sound. The JCM 800. It was. I really liked it.
Yeah, I first went in there when I was 9 years old, and it was just like, and I remember like just getting my butt kicked by the owner, Phil. Like just him. I asked for something that wasn't right, and I remember him just destroying me straight up, like, because he's like,
he was a bit of a hard ass there, Phil.
So it was great to just that, and well, years later I named a song after him actually, which is called "The Lord Mayor of New Lambton."
I saw that. That was one of the questions I was going to ask.
Yeah. So because Phil, the owner, is a huge Steely Dan nut. Like, he absolutely loves Steely Dan, and so I just wrote this song. It sounds like a rip-off of a Steely Dan song.
Yes.
And had to name it after him.
Called it the Lord Mayor of Newcastle. So, getting back to it, how did you sort of develop your sort of guitar technique at the start? How was it? How did you have people that were teaching you, or was it a natural sort of progression in your style?
Yeah, I definitely had teachers when I started.
Yes.
I had some great teachers actually, like, and once again, come back to this foundation in sort of Newcastle legends in a way. Like a couple of my early teachers were Terry Latham, who is he runs a studio in Ties Hill now, and he also teaches at the university, teaches music and sound engineering. So we were actually on the faculty together.
Yes.
Like, I was teaching at university for a number of years. So having him when I was like 10 or 11 was amazing. And then the other one was Peter Gray, who's a famous Newcastle bass player. Played in a band called the Funky Doodahs forever, in a band called Well Swung with Bruce Matisky, who's a pretty famous Newcastle guitar player. And then he spent the last, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years touring. He was the bass player in Mental as Anything.
Oh, right.
Before, now I've forgotten the guy's name. The singer died late last year. So, but Pete was touring with them up until that point. So I had this foundation of great teachers who were also professional musicians, and that sort of got the ball rolling when I think I stopped lessons when I was about 13.
Right.
And then I went just crazy into doing things myself. And, guitar, the techniques and things I do are very much a part of the music I love, equally with, I'm going to almost just say, the culture of live music in Newcastle.
Yes.
Like, all my music really is a product of, like, loving all these incredible jazz artists and instrumental guitar players that have, crazy technique, like, but then having to work out a way to present that in Newcastle pubs that I wouldn't get something thrown at me. It's taken my lifetime really to do that, like to have the confidence to walk into a pub in Newcastle and play instrumental music and sort of develop things. So it's definitely been guided by those two things.
And how was that come across, all over these years now, especially like in Newcastle, where you don't have a singer? Do you have to sort of pick the venues that you have to play at, or is it are they pretty generally okay with your style of music?
No one's. Yeah, originally it was very hard. I know the first gig I did that was regular, that was instrumental, was at the Delaney Hotel.
Come on,
like early 2000s.
Yes.
And the Wednesday nights there used to be, they'd almost were considered the muso nights.
Yes.
So they were the bands that were like, the highest sort of caliber around town. And the band I was in at the time was called Fumi Boka. And we were, and it was, we all played covers in cover bands as well. And we could all sing at the time. I wouldn't dare sing anymore, but we initially...
Why is that?
I'll go into that in a second.
Okay.
So we'd done a few shows at the Dell on a Sunday where they had a songwriters night. So it was like a short set, and we packed the place out. Everyone went nuts. So they're like, okay, we'll give you a Wednesday night where it's 3 sets, but you have to do 2 sets of covers and sing. Like, you can do 1 set of your stuff where it was saxophone, guitar, drums, and bass.
Yes.
And we prepared to do that. We're like, okay. We turned up for the first set and the pub was packed. I'm talking like maybe 300 or 400 people had come to see the gig.
Wow.
So the first set actually ended up only being 3 songs. 45 minutes, there were 3 songs because they were all just solos and things happening.
Right.
So we just went with it. And that's what happened at those gigs. Like for 5 years, I think. We were told we had to do this. I don't think we ever. Well, no, I know we never sang a song that whole time.
and it was just you were saying before you played 3 or 4 songs, but is that just like improvisation?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, every.
So you're just gonna get. So do you just say, hey, here's the part. We're gonna play the rhythm, and then okay, you go and play a solo. Is that how?
Yeah, essentially, like when you compose for improvisation, if that makes sense. So it's still going to have a song, so especially the way I write music, you could still tell that this is maybe a verse and this is a chorus, and then you can either go 2 ways where then you just play the verse and chorus again, but instead of having the melody that you would have had, now it's just someone soloing over it and improvising that. And that can just be open-ended. Or, the other way that we used to write, especially in that band, was you could have verse, chorus, and then the bridge section might be the solo. So it's like goes to a new section and that becomes the improvisation. But yeah, they just end up open-ended. So a song, when you record an album, you might make that shorter just to make the song catchier. So it could go for 3 minutes, but live it could go for 20.
And just going off topic, just listening to your music today, just going through all your career, from the first album to the recent one that you're about to release. I listened to it and it's like, yeah, it's cool, but I wanna see it. I want to see it. That's the type of music that I want to just sit there and go, that's cool, And
I think that was always the joy of especially instrumental music for me. It was that you have this open-endedness and, it does connect and is very much inspired by the audience.
Yes.
So, and you can twist a song and take it to a different place every night, depending what the audience gives you or who they are. Yeah. And it's really fun to be able to do that you've got this basic framework of a song, and then, that's at the start of the end. So you go, oh yeah, that's that song. But then the middle part just becomes this I would say like a very interactive thing that hopefully it's not just interactive between maybe the band, but also with the audience as well. And especially when I play solo, it's very much me and the audience. It's not like I'm just here shredding by myself. And I have a disregard for whatever anyone's doing out there. It's very much informed by, who's in front of me and what they're doing and how they're responding. And, so I really find it amazingly connective in that way, creating this music. It's not just like, here's my song, this is it, I'm playing it for you. It very much becomes a back and forth.
And for you, like, keeping it fresh as well, like, going to the next gig and not knowing, okay, I'm just going to go out and just jam on something, that is exciting and fresh for someone that's done it for so long, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly. And it keeps, especially having played Newcastle for so long, I think it keeps people coming back because they go, oh, I wonder how he's going to play that song tonight. I wonder how that's going to turn. Or, it definitely keeps it, you tend to not get as bored with your material. Because you go, all right, well, I've got this song. Even if you just play it a bit slower or a bit faster than usual, just turns things in a different direction.
Yes. And do you have people coming up to you going, hey, you played that a little bit slower this time. That was so cool,
Yeah, definitely people pick up on things that sometimes I don't. Yeah.
Keeping it. And with like the tuning as well, like do you keep it to a standard tuning, or do you like to sort of change the tuning to?
I play everything in standard tuning.
Right.
So on a guitar, it's just I will sometimes do what's called drop D, which is just tuning your lowest string down.
Yes.
There's one song on one album that's an open C tuning.
Right.
But everything else is standard, and I think it goes back to my keyboard days. Right. Is that when I first learnt to play the guitar, unlike most people that like learn chord shapes and shapes up and down, because I didn't have a teacher for maybe a month after I picked it up, I actually just worked out where the keyboard was on each string. So when I look at a guitar, I see black and white keys on it, up and down each string. Yes. And so if that gets changed, I'm lost.
Yeah.
It's like if someone just randomly changed all the keys around on a piano, so I tend to not stick around in it. It just, it doesn't
your
make
ears
sense
are sort
to
of
me.
like accustomed to it, and you hear something different. Yeah.
Well, it's not so much it's my fingers and my eyes. It's like, I just, if I put my finger here, I go, well, that's a D. If that string is now a different pitch and that's not a D anymore, then my relationship to all the other strings is out and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So, let's talk about the Newcastle music scene.
Yeah.
I always like talking about it with local musicians and bands. I've interviewed new bands. I've interviewed some not so new bands. I think I'm around the same age as you. And when I would go out in town, there must have been, at least 7 or 8 different places where I could go out during the week or on the weekend, especially. And it didn't matter who it was. I'd go out and watch a live band.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, if we didn't like this band, we could go to another venue and watch another live band. And gradually we'd find someone that was cool.
Yeah.
And it had a real good live scene. There was lots of musos. There was lots of original bands. Now I don't know where to go. Well, there's some places that still have live music, but from 20 years ago to now, it's changed a lot. So tell us a little bit about that, the change in your opinion, and why that sort of happened.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think it's just evolved is probably my best explanation of it. And it just changes with scenes and age groups as well. I actually think Newcastle, especially, pre-lockdowns and COVID, was in a really strong place for live music.
Right.
You know, when I was around, 2000, late 90s, early 2000s, the scene in Newcastle was very strong for cover musicians.
Mm.
And there were bands playing everywhere.
Yes.
And like in that era, the solos and duos playing with the backing tracks, because you had to have that. You weren't allowed to not use backing tracks in those days, which I was super against, and no one would give me a gig. But and then it went through this period. I know for me, like, all I can really talk about is the scenes I was involved in. So I was very much in original music back in those days. So I was doing gigs, and there were gigs around, but no one was at them.
Yes.
Like the original music thing, like, it was very dead.
Yeah.
You know, I remember we did an album launch at SJ's it was probably 2000, and people turned up for that, but usually our gigs had like 4 people there.
Yeah.
And then, like, sort of the singer-songwriter scene developed in the 2000s, and there started to be these songwriter nights around where people would, like, sort of appreciate, I guess, original music, and that, I think, really propelled things in Newcastle and changed the idea of what original music was. I think people thought it was just, and it was for a lot of part, like, heavy stuff.
Yes.
And so then a lot of, like, even like the good cover musicians, respected cover musicians around town, were starting to play original things at this, and it became quite special in that way. And then as it went on, what I've found is just that the scenes move, and it is very much an age group thing as well. Like, it's, I've been very lucky, especially in recent years as I've got older, to teach at the university in Newcastle.
Right.
Teaching music. And, through that, I sort of still connected with a lot of the younger musicians, like, coming through, and was able to, like, see where they were playing, or I would be playing gigs and they'd all turn up to watch me play. And so it's sort of really cool. So there's this little pocket of gigs playing, which I still play when I'm in town, that have very, where you can sort of just go and play anything.
Yes.
And the people that go to those venues tend to just go, oh, I don't know what this is going to be, but I'm sure it'll be good. Like, usually the person that books it at least curates it and goes, you could get like a bluegrass band playing around one mic now, or you could get, a soloist that plays like an old like MIDI drum machine, but it sounds like, most things coming off Triple J, but it's like, it's really cool and diverse. Or then you'll get me playing instrumental guitar in the corner of the pub. So, like, my favorite venues in town are like the Oriental Hotel in Cooks Hill, which I play a lot, and I like Coal and Cedar, that sort of has a blues slant. It's a whiskey bar. What else is there? The Edwards was doing great music for a while. I'm not, obviously it's all sort of changing now.
There's Chris Ioane. Does he get the old bass out and do some Silverchair?
Chris does not. Chris has like left his music behind for just being a mogul of bars around Newcastle pretty much now.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I actually still help book and run a gig at the Grand Hotel in the Underground.
Oh, yes.
Which is called NEMA. It runs every Tuesday night, which is the Newcastle Improvised Music Association.
Come on.
And so that's a jazz gig that's ticketed, and it's every Tuesday. And we have people from all around the world coming to play this venue. And most people go, what on earth is this? Why are there so many people here? But it's just become this thing that presents really different music than you get anywhere else, but has just been able to maintain. I think it was running for 8 years, I think, up until before this. So, yeah. I
went there a couple of times before I left Newcastle, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And they've all done it up, and because, like in the early 2000s, that was like, you couldn't move in those places, and they were just like a DJ, and And I was like, why don't they have bands in this place? It would be good.
Yeah.
And then walked in, and there was all like lounges and all new furniture, and it's like, oh wow.
Yeah, we really tried to make it feel like a New York jazz club, and it really does. Like, to me, except it's still actually physically bigger than most of the jazz clubs in New York. It really has that vibe, and I've had friends from all around the world play there now. Like,
right.
So and cool. they're just shocked that something like this exists. They just couldn't believe, and even just the diversity of the crowd, because at that gig. And I find at a lot of gigs I play, there's people there from 18 to 70.
Yes.
Like, there's just people of all age groups coming together to, like, share in the same music. And I think, well, that's pretty hip. So, yeah, I think Newcastle's in a really good place, or it has been.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm always sort of looking out for new musicians here in Newcastle and trying to, promote them in any way. But I would like to get it back to, instead of having to go to Sydney or Melbourne, sort of.
Yeah. Well,
let's
that's
record
definitely it's not the case anymore. Yeah. Like, there's great studios here. There's great producers. There's people, making music in Newcastle. It's constantly getting played on Triple J now.
That's great.
And there is definitely a scene of gigs and an audience to support the creativity of that as well, like where people are turning up and experiencing it and giving you input to work out what works and what doesn't work in that environment. And it's healthier than most cities I've been to in the world, strangely enough.
Great.
As you watch music shut down, I've always been astonished how Newcastle keeps going.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's great to hear. Like like I said, I don't live here anymore, but it's always cool to come back and see that the Newcastle, the music scene is sort of going ahead, and it's great to hear that people like you that are still sort of waving the flag for the
totally,
Newcastle
and it's
scene, and
the quality of stuff here is just insane. I often one of the first things I used to tell my university students when they first came, especially that there was an era like 10 years ago where people stopped going out a lot, even young kids, I guess because it just got expensive and there was so much entertainment at home.
Yes.
And I used to have these students come into me and I'm like, oh, so what sort of music would you go and watch? And they're like, oh, you mean on YouTube? And I'm like, no, in real life. And they're like, oh, I've never seen a band in real life. And these are people that are studying music degrees.
Wow.
But it was really easy for me to go, oh, okay, so who do you like? And I could give them, especially guitar players. I was like, well, here's a list of 10 guys in Newcastle that's better than this guy. Yeah, like that will give you'll be able to see them do it in real life. So, that's still the case. So, I'm still blown away by the whole Newcastle music scene, but it does evolve. And maybe if you're not in the know or know someone that tells you where you should maybe go and check out at the moment, it could be a little difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
But keep doing that, and even for the newer sort of people that are going out, like got to tell them live music. That's what it's all about. Go and see a band. Don't go to YouTube. Don't sit on your phone.
Well, it's hard right now. We'll see.
Yes, at this period. But when all the restrictions are away, go and see a live band. Go
exactly
and promote it. So let's talk about your music now. So your first album, I do believe, was in 2001.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yep.
So how did this all come about? Like, and how did you form? Did you form your band at that stage, or were you still doing?
So that album is entirely solo.
Right.
It's just solo guitar. It's just me. Easiest way, that album was recorded as a university assignment.
Right.
For sound engineering when I was doing sound engineering at university.
Right. So 2001. So were these all the songs that you sort of like had written?
I think a lot of it. Yeah. Some of those, like I track 1 on that is a song called Alone, and I wrote that, I think, when I was 15.
Right.
So
okay.
I would have been 20 when I recorded that album. So it was, so they were like nearly all the songs I'd written up until that point. Right. And I recorded that album because the year before I'd finally got to meet and perform with Tommy Emmanuel.
Wow.
And then I was going off on tour with him the following year in Australia. So I wanted to have an album to sell for that. But it was weird in those days because, like, printing CDs cost a fortune.
Yes.
You know, like, distribution wasn't a thing. So that's...
And it was sort of a bit new there at that stage as well.
Yeah, you didn't sell anything online. That didn't happen, honestly, for another 8 years.
Yes.
So that album actually never got printed. I have burnt copies that I used to make and print the covers out, maybe at Officeworks. I think Officeworks was around then on their good printer. And I used to cut them out and put them in the plastic CD tray. And so, you know, I might have made like 30 of them.
Right.
And I think I've still got 10.
Oh. Yeah. And did you, was that a tour after that, or was it just sort of local still at that stage?
Just toured around, like, well, not really tour. Like, I did shows around New South Wales. And
right.
I think I went to Melbourne a couple of times and did some guitar festivals down there. And,
okay.
Yeah.
So any in particular, like any like big festivals, or were just like
small? Well, they were guitar festivals. So there was one called the Frankston International Guitar Festival, which they had guitar players from all around the world, but it was predominantly set around instrumental and, you know, high quality guitar playing. So yeah.
Okay. And then your follow-up album was 3 years later.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested to know why did it take 3 years to bring out another album? Was it just because of the, you know, where you were at that stage? Or...
Yeah, I think because at that stage I was also doing a lot of other bands. I was in quite a few other things through that stage, so my own stuff wasn't really a thing. Right. And it was still the thing in those days where I couldn't play this stuff anywhere in Newcastle.
Right.
There was nowhere I could go and do a gig.
So like, where were you going? So would you go back down to Melbourne and Sydney? And
No. I just wasn't doing a gig anywhere.
Right.
It was like I would play this stuff at home, but there was no actual outlet to play. So it was, and basically it was just another tour with Tommy Emmanuel I got. So I decided to finally get another album to go on that tour with him to sell. So, so that was
he seems to be like a bit of a mentor for you, like a bit of inspiration.
Yeah. It was a huge inspiration, definitely. Yeah. And you know, as far as instrumental music goes in Australia, he was the man. You know, like his albums were top 5 in the ARIA charts in the 90s when they get released.
Wow.
And and you know, he was on like Hey It's Saturday every day.
Yeah.
You know, every week it was on. He was there guesting as someone. So he was definitely a household name. And you know, getting to play shows with him and doing my own stuff was an amazing thing, because before that, all I'd ever really played of that style of music was his songs. So I then had to find, you know, stuff to play of my own. So it was a really good foundation as well, because I guess even in those days, because I'd done so much original music as well already, like I was playing in other bands that did do fairly big festivals like Day on the Green and things in Australia and stuff like that, like more popular music. I was aware of being different. So, you know, it was that time it was like I was really trying to focus on creating something different and not just walking out being a little Tommy Emmanuel clone.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, yeah. So that music in that period was, very much influenced by trying to create different, trying to play the guitar a little bit different. And also a lot of the songs on that album were things we were playing at the Delaney Hotel in that band, Fumi Boca. So there's the Fumi Boca songs are on that album as well, a few of those. So, yeah.
All right. And then next one is 2008, Out of My Hands.
Yep. Yep.
And again, it was a 4-year wait for
Yep.
another album. Again, was it the same thing, or was it?
It's a similar, just the evolution of life.
Yes.
As you like mid-20s, watching everyone sort of grow up a bit, like
Yes.
actually get real jobs. Starting to find their feet, and I did go through a period then which I did make a CD, but it's not available anywhere. Where I did sing and went, well, I'm going to be John Mayer, and so went down the pop route.
Yes.
And tried to do that so that was probably in the middle between those two albums, really. But ultimately, I just had nothing to say. My songs were terrible when they had vocals. The lyrics were bad, and I'm just not a very good singer. It just made me sound like an average musician, as a friend pointed out to me. He's like, yeah, it just sounds like whatever. He's like, but when you just play guitar, it's incredible. Yeah. So that was a huge part of it. And I was ready to also probably just give up in the middle of that too. Just go, well, I've done the music thing. It's maybe time to think about life a little bit more.
Yeah. Grow up a little. Yes.
Yeah.
Take responsibility.
Yeah. But I actually went for my first trip by myself overseas in that time as well.
Right.
So I went to the US and Switzerland for a couple of months, and in that time I got to meet and then play with a few of my heroes over there, and that was like, and that gave me the confidence to go, oh, okay, so maybe I'm not just a kid from Newcastle, and maybe I could take this to a global stage. And so and that really
sorry, and I was reading it on your website how even with when you're in LA, the different types of musicians that you get to meet over there would totally inspire you, and start to again, let's write a new album.
Exactly, and that's always the thing. Like, and especially I've been super lucky to meet like the people I'd listened to from all that point, like, because they're not rock stars, but in my head I think they're rock stars because they were all I would listen to. But just getting to meet some of these people, and most of them have become good friends now, that I see how they live their lives. I see like how they go about sort of doing their business in music, and it doesn't have to be this whole all or nothing sort of thing. Like, they can balance family life, they can balance things with creating music, and often that is the focus of being creative rather than selling in a way. Yes. And so on the trip leading up to recording that album, I got to meet this guy named Charlie Hunter, who's plays this. He was famous for a long time for playing this 8-string guitar where he plays bass and guitar at the same time.
Oh wow!
And it's incredible. And he's so huge. Should be so big that like Norah Jones' first recording was a guest artist on one of his albums before she released her Blue Note album.
Is that how you hold you play with your thumb? And
no, Charlie actually doesn't do that. He doesn't even need to do that. He's so good.
Oh, really?
And then John Mayer is also a huge fan of Charlie. So Charlie has recorded songs on John Mayer albums and things as well. And so I managed to meet Charlie on this trip, and so that was just incredible, and just be able to hang out with him for a while. And then the day after that, I was back in New York City and managed to talk my way into playing 2 shows with the Les Paul on Broadway. So I did 2 shows as the guest artist on the Les Paul show in Broadway. So for those who don't know who Les Paul is, like, he died a couple of years later in his late 90s, but he was the guy that essentially invented multi-track recording, so the ability to play something and then play over yourself, which is the foundation of everything ever since.
Yes.
He invented the echo effect, or tape delay, by manipulating tape machines so they would echo to play something after him. And then, you know, he had a lot to do with the modern electric guitar as well. And, you know, one of the most famous guitars of all time is the Gibson Les Paul. And that was his signature model. So that's where it all sort of stems from. So being able to do like those two things really gave me the courage to, to keep going with music. Yeah.
So did you get to speak to Les Paul?
Yeah.
Did he have any words of advice to give you, or just
his
talking
words of advice were actually, and this was before going onto stage. He was just because he'd never heard me play. I basically, it's a long story, but you know, he'd never heard me play, so he just invited me on. He's just like, remember, it doesn't matter how many notes you can play or how fast you are. This is a performance, you know. The audience is the key thing here, so make sure you go out and entertain. Yeah, so that was something I'd learnt from Tommy Emmanuel even when I was much younger, like just how important that side of things is. But that was his main thing, and he was pretty serious. He might have even like done the finger, you know, like pointed the finger at me while saying this, like just to make sure you do this when you come out. It's not just about your guitar playing; it's about the show.
Yeah, right. Ooh. So did that make you want to go back to the US a bit more, like a bit of probably a bit more of a following, more musicians, more opportunities to play?
Definitely the opportunity and the inspiration that I got there, definitely attracted me back. So, you know, if I could manage to do those things in 2 days while not thinking I was going to play anywhere, while I was just on a holiday, if I could go back focused with trying to achieve things, it definitely just, opened my world. And just being in those places where there's so much history of music and the music I love, like, you know, especially New York City then, where a lot of the venues were still open, which they're not, unfortunately, now. You know, just because they've closed down because of real estate and things like that. You know, it was incredible. It was just super inspiring, and it has been ever since, you know, just being able to go there and be in that. And then I remember like the first time I was doing my own Adam Miller shows in New York, and on the subway with a guitar on my back and carrying an amplifier through the gates. You know, like that was like one of the most fun days of my life. Like I'll never forget, just it was so awkward and so hard, but I was so stoked that I was getting the subway to a gig.
That's so cool. What a memory.
Yeah.
So you got that was 2008 Out of My Hands, and then you went into the next 2012, delayed another 4 years to release this one. But I think at this stage, you sort of like a progression with your sort of, the music that you were creating there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it was. So I was starting to be in the US a lot more, and Delayed was actually made. This is the thing about the US. Like I went back once in 2009 after that first trip, which, you know, was actually to propose to my wife. She was working there at the time.
That's lovely.
And that was amazing. And I hung out with Charlie Hunter, as I mentioned before. We hung out and played a lot while I was there.
Yes.
And then I went back the following year early and played at this huge trade show in Anaheim. It's like the biggest music trade show in the world. It's like 400,000 people go. And it's, you know, every rock star you've ever known is there as well, because they've all got product endorsements. So, I got offered a record deal because someone heard me play walking around there. And but it didn't go very well. So it took 2 years of negotiating, getting the thing done, and then eventually sort of getting out of that record deal.
Right.
So it took a while to do it, and they very specifically wanted a solo acoustic guitar album. So like me just playing solo, just playing guitar in front of microphones, and that's it. So it might not have been the album I would have made at that time, but that's what they wanted. And by the time it was all done, I was like, well, I've got to roll with this now. There's too much work in this just to scrap it.
Yeah. So then you got mad. So was your wife from the US or
No, she's from Newcastle as well.
Newcastle as well, right? Yeah. Oh, very lovely. And then we continue on 2014, Shifty Units.
Yeah.
2016, collaboration.
Yeah.
With Jason Lowe. So tell me about this one.
Yeah.
I only heard a little bit of this. So tell us a little bit about the 2016 collaboration with Jason.
So Jason, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him at all, is a very fine Newcastle musician. He won the ABC Newcastle Music Awards in, I'm going to say 2008 as a 18-year-old. And he's a savant. He's incredible. He just, his music is, this equal parts like Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, Harry Manx. So he's an incredible songwriter and poet, and also like he's also an incredible slide guitar player. So lap slide, where you play the guitar with a bar in your lap, and he's just has an incredible ear and musicality. And so Jason and I had recorded, I actually produced the song that won that award.
Right.
And then he released an album for ABC Records, and I produced that as well. So we'd work together a lot, and we'd often just like jam around. Yes. And we were both between projects, actually. Like we were both like in this stage of, we were about to record something, but it wasn't ready yet. And we were just waiting.
Yes.
And he would often come around to my house and just drink tea.
Right.
We'd just hang out and chat. And then one afternoon I just said, hey, do you want to just bring your guitar around today? And so he did, and he didn't know what for. And I'd already just set up 2 amplifiers and microphones. And so we just jammed for half an hour. And that's that. That's what you hear there. Wow. So I think there was one song that we jammed on that just didn't sound very good. And then there was another song on that EP, which is essentially, it's what's called the Force theme from Star Wars, because we're both Star Wars nuts.
Right.
And so we recorded that. So that is not on like the Spotify version of things, but it's on the Bandcamp version of it, and it's on SoundCloud, I think, as well. But literally, we just jammed. Sometimes we might have had a discussion before we started playing, but I think most of the time one of us would start something, and that's what you heard. So it was really fun and spontaneous. So we recorded it that afternoon. I'd mixed it a couple of days later, and it was out a week later.
Wow.
Yeah.
And again, it just goes to show that you're not just sort of sticking to the one thing. You're sort of going in different directions, Yeah. And as a musician, that's good. You need that. You need that sort of.
Yeah. It's always been a part of my world. Like I've been in so many other bands and playing for other artists in the midst of this. And sometimes that's like the long gaps between albums is, it's that I've been recording for someone else or recording in someone else's project.
Producing.
I've been on tour for a long time. Yes. So there's generally a lot of space there that happens, and life that you just, doesn't make it the easiest to think about creating new works.
Yes. And then 2018, you also released the Defining of Success.
Yeah, Defining of Success.
Defining of Success. So tell us a little bit about this one. This is a bit more recent. So again, was this done here in Newcastle? Or
this was mainly recorded at the house I was living in Cardiff.
Right, okay.
So
the technology, the world we live in.
Well, actually, all my albums have been done at home. They've all been recorded and produced by me. But even, my 2000, back then, I recorded that in my bedroom as the university assignment. So it's pretty crazy.
Saving costs on, going into a recording studio.
Saving costs, but I just enjoy it so much. Like recording is such a fun part of making music.
Yes.
Like actually listening to your instrument back, even as you're doing it, just going, oh, wow. And just you being the person in control of where that microphone sits and the rest of it. It's really fun. So I actually really enjoy that part of the process.
And then more recently, or we're talking about it before, the release. So the album hasn't come out yet, but you have released a couple of singles from the album, right?
I'm about to release a single actually, as we discussed this. So nothing is out yet. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this. Tell us a little bit about the single.
Yeah. So the single is actually inspired by another great friend and hero of mine, this guy named Adam Levy. And he's most famous as being like Norah Jones' guitar player. Right. He played, what is it? Give Me One Reason, Tracy Chapman. Right. He's the guitar player on that. And we've been friends for a number of years. And he's even played at the Underground at the Grand Hotel a few years ago. So we've done a lot together over the years. And we were at a jam in Los Angeles last year. And he just started playing this chord progression for us. It was to jam along to, and I loved it so much. I just checked whether it was a song he'd written. He's like, "Oh no, I just made it up then." So I kind of stole that as the basis for the song, and then just made other things around it. So it's really exciting. This album is the first album I haven't recorded in Newcastle, actually. So I recorded it in Los Angeles.
Right.
Last year.
For everybody else that doesn't know, you moved to LA, or is that
who knows? We lived in LA for most of last year.
Right.
Although we didn't have a consistent house between touring and all those things. And then we were moving back. We'd spent Christmas here and just getting some things sorted, and we're moving back in March. So yeah. So who knows?
Yes.
The hope is that we would get back there, but, saying anything about international travel and moving right now is
a little bit.
It's too difficult to sort of say.
Yeah.
This album was the first one I've recorded overseas. And so I guess it's just in my new home, I would say. And that was definitely the thing at the time. And with my LA band. So yeah, it's the music's just a little bit more refined. And I kind of say that from the point of view of that it is sort of as some of the music I'd written and played in Newcastle, and a lot of it I'd written and played in the US, maybe half and half. Yeah. And so it's sort of got this, it's a little bit more refined in that it reflects the audiences I get to play to in the US versus Aussie pubs.
Yes, I totally understand. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to ask. How have you adjusted living in LA? I mean, it's a huge jump from Newcastle, So
look, it isn't.
And tell us about like the music scene there. I love LA. Some people hate LA.
Totally.
I'm a big fan of it. I've been there 4 times, and I really like the vibe there. I keep saying it on the podcast. It gets repetitive, but I really do like the fact that there's not a lot of people that actually are born in LA. They've come from all different, what do you want to do? I want to be a musician. I want to be a makeup artist. I want to be, and that's really inspiring.
Yeah.
So
I think that is like LA, I do actually find a little bit similar to Newcastle.
Really?
Which sounds insane in that, from the surface, it's a big, ugly city that just doesn't seem to have anything going for it. So I understand a lot of people disliking it.
Yeah.
And I disliked it the first couple of times I went too. But the more you know people, you realize that it really is just a giant city made up of tiny communities.
Yes.
And so, like, when you find your little hood, like, sometimes I'm in places and I'm like, I could be in New Lambton, or, there's probably nowhere as chilled as Merriweather near the beach. But it definitely reminds me more of that. And even like the venues and the music I go and see and the places I see it at, I'm like, this could be the Ori, the Oriental Hotel, rather than this place in East LA.
Yes.
So, the main difference, like from a music scene point of view, is that you know, the people I'm going to see play and playing with and hanging out with are equally as incredible as musicians here. Just the thing is, the people I'm hanging out with in LA are the musicians. Like they're the people on those records. So, you know, I was talking about this jam with Adam Levy before, and you know, like that jam that day, it was happening from 10 to 12 every Thursday, 10 to 12 a.m., like 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at a coffee shop in North Hollywood. And it was outside, and it was put together by the guy that plays guitar for Shania Twain.
Right.
So he's Shania Twain's guitar player. The day I played was myself, Adam Levy, who I just mentioned was Norah Jones' guitar player for a long time. The keys player that day has been the touring organ player for the Tedeschi Trucks band, who are a pretty famous, like, sort of jam band in the US. Like, everyone there is someone.
Yeah.
You know, like, you just go, oh, you know that guy? Yeah, he plays for them. Or he's the guy you heard on that album.
Right.
So I think that's, you know, that's sort of the difference and the inspiring thing. And when, you know, someone talks about doing a session or a recording tomorrow, you know, it's for someone huge. And, you know, that really is just a matter of proximity. Yeah. You know, it's like Newcastle, you know, I always say could nearly be the same thing. It's just we're not. But it's, yeah, and that's what is really inspiring. Seeing people of that caliber every day, but them sort of doing the same sort of gigs. You could imagine you're watching them in the pub in Newcastle and just going, oh, okay, wow, that's, you know, this is how this person is dealing with the room, talking over them, the same as everywhere else. But, and then you kind of wonder, like, you know, the musicians in the room and you go, oh, yeah, these guys know. But then you're going, I wonder if the person at the bar knows that this is who this is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, are they going to play at the Grand Hotel this band?
Yeah.
Or, have they played at the Underground yet?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, they have? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And, you know, you said that you were going to tour in US. Do you plan to do like a bit of a run on the East Coast, or? I
have no idea.
No idea?
Like, yeah, with the whole situation here, like I've said, I can talk from a lot of point of views, but I know venues under the current restrictions and even easing of restrictions, you know, won't really be opening in Australia, even when things change in July again. Those restrictions are still too tough for the size of venue I would play in. So, you know, my new album comes out on the 7th of August. I'm a little bit excited that at this stage I might even be able to do an album release show in Newcastle somewhere. That would be pretty exciting, because I wasn't thinking that was going to be the case for a long time. So, you know, while I'm in Australia, hopefully, if things open up, I'll be trying to play everywhere I can, because it's definitely something for me. It's like exercise, or, you know, it's just that sort of thing you need. You need, like, performing and playing in front of people just becomes this entire mental and emotional release. And I know with things happening over the last few weeks as well, you know, with the highlighting of racial injustice around the world, that sort of stuff, that's been weighing super heavily on me from Australia, and even like seeing the events in LA as well, just seeing, you know, those riots are happening in places I was in all the time.
Yes.
You know, it was pretty stressful, and even just switching on Instagram Live for 20 minutes and just playing music for people helped sort of, you know, release and focus some of those emotions. So, you know, while it's not the same as playing for other people in the same room, that, you know, I've found that doing that and having that focus of going, okay, if I play this song now, I actually have to finish it because there's people watching.
Yeah,
it's a good practice thing at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so post post pandemic, what does the future hold for Adam Miller?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't
like
have
it doesn't have to be like music wise, like family.
Yeah, we're just I think it's just because our world is so upside down right now, and we just haven't been able to make decisions. We don't even know which country we're living in. It's right now we're in a room at my parents' house, because we were just here until we moved back, and so trying to get a place to rent is, that's a 12-month commitment, really. So I'm not sure if we're doing that or if we're waiting for borders to open back up and move, or if there's even work in the US. So I think it's nice to be in a situation of just total unknown.
Yes, it is.
And just having to be somewhat totally faith guided that things will work out some way. But I'm not really willing to speak to it yet, because there's just so many unknowns. I'm just really trying to enjoy like the moments of right now, of like being now that restrictions have eased, that we can see family and friends that we didn't think we would get to see as much right now. I'm a super avid, keen mountain biker. My sporting claim to fame was I was ranked first in Australia in downhill as a teenager.
There you go.
For a period of a week or something between events, but still.
So if the music doesn't go back, you can go back to your
it's not a good idea. But like in Newcastle, we have these incredible mountain bike trails that are on the ocean in Glenrock. This state recreation park. So it's crazy. You're like, doing mountain biking, then you come out and it's this beach that, it's only a few crazy surfers sort of go to. And so, I'm just taking advantage of all those things of while I'm here, because they were all the things that I was letting go of moving back to the US. That was like, well, I can't afford a bike in the US, and we won't have a car for a while, so I couldn't even drive to somewhere in LA that I could ride a bike anyway, and close proximity just to the beach and good coffee and friends, and just the stress of not having to book shows right now. Like, if one of the hardest things, I think, and this is always the case, like talking future plans with a musician, is that there is no certainty in anything. So and you're having to sell yourself every day, like, so the easiest way I've found to explain to someone that doesn't work in the arts is, imagine doing like a job application, but doing 30 of them a day, like all individualized. And then for most of them, you never get a reply. You don't get a no or a yes or a maybe. You just get no answer. So, the stress of that does take its toll, and it gets insane. So I'm enjoying the break from that right now, of not trying to, book the shows. I don't mind planning tours and planning, plane flights and accommodation and all that. I enjoy the travel side of things and even organizing that, but the actual getting the concert to play and locking all that in the first place is a daunting, difficult process, and I'm super thankful to not have to do that for a little while.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's keep us posted on your upcoming events, and so let's start to wrap it up. So what advice would you give to an inspiring musician, maybe from Newcastle, maybe not necessarily Newcastle, but anyway, what advice would you give to an aspiring guitar player?
Well, I think the main thing now is that you have access to everything. And I know I didn't have that when I was growing up. So if you want to learn anything or see anyone play something, you pretty much can. So try to take advantage of that as much as possible. I think, playing music with other people is a really important thing. And it's another easy thing to just get, locked in your bedroom, and it's important to share music, not just from the technical and getting better point of view, but also from just the community point of view. I think that's more apparent now as we've been, not had community for a few months, that just the enjoyment of sharing and playing music with other people is pretty incredible.
Yes.
And just to, try to close down your fears as much as possible to actually do things. And like, especially now, I find so many people are so scared to release music. It's sort of funny. Like, they're like, oh, I can't do that. And I get it, because now, like I mentioned earlier, is when you release something, it is on the same playing field as everyone else.
Yes.
But if you don't start doing it, you sort of never will. You'll just put it off forever.
That's right.
And it's a great snapshot in times. Like a couple of my albums, like I look back and go, oh, what was I thinking? And man, I wish I'd just played that again. But, it's just part of it. And, it goes, for me personally, I can go back and hear, not that I do it very often, but I had to do it recently, where I changed the digital distribution of all my albums. So I actually had to go back and, when you upload them, you have to check it all.
Right.
So you have to listen and make sure everything went through the internet right. And so it was really interesting to actually listen to some of these old things and go, oh, okay, wow. And, and then some of it remembering going, yeah, I remember when I recorded this, like I had to record that day at 8 a.m. because I had to drive somewhere at 9:30, and that was the only time in the day I could do it where there wasn't noise, or like, you just sort of remember all the things that sort of, or maybe inspired the song. So, yeah, but I think that's the main thing, is just take advantage of all the opportunities and the people around you, the things that you have access to now that, I know I didn't when I was even like 20 years ago. Yeah.
And you're talking about before, like with your music, like, did you at any stage find any pressure to play a certain type of music because of, labels or people, friends?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, always. Yeah, like, the thing for me was always, you have to sing.
Yes.
That was the main thing of going, like, you have to sing, especially early on. It hasn't happened for a long time now, but I think, except for a very small detour that I did mention, I kind of just stuck to this thing of like, well, this is what I know. Like, even for me, 90% of the music I listen to is instrumental. Like, it's just always connected to me. And I just find so much more, for me, I can reveal so much more emotion and explain so much more through the guitar than I ever could lyrically and ever could, trying to sing. So it's that has always been the main pressure, but I'm pretty stoked that I did just sort of stick to this instrumental idea of like, for my own music at least, of just going, this is how I communicate best. Yeah.
That's your strength. That's what you're good at. So,
and that's what I'm always working on. So, like all my titles, generally, hopefully if someone listens to a title, they can sort of hear that feeling and that emotion through that music. And then, I could I could explain to you what it means to me, but it might explain something else to someone, and that is the beauty of instrumental music. You're not telling someone how to feel or how to take it. It just, it can go off in any direction someone needs.
Yeah. All right, Adam. Well, I normally do like a quick couple of short answers, question and answers. Yeah. And you just give me the first response that you come up with.
All right. Before you jump in, my phone battery's at 1%, so you might lose me.
Okay. All right. Let's go. Let's do this. Yeah. What music are you currently listening to now?
John Scofield's new album.
Okay.
American jazz guitarist. Yeah.
Awesome. A Newcastle musician that some people might not know.
A Newcastle. Some people might not know that should know.
Yes.
I'm going to say, well, one is Jeremy Manette, who was a student of mine who just released his first single and took that big step. So his guitar stuff is pretty happening. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And you were talking about Star Trek before. What did you
Star
think?
Wars. Don't say
Star
Wars.
Sorry.
That's the worst.
Sorry. I wrote down. Why did I write down Star Trek? The recent Star Wars. Opinion on that?
Makes a lot more sense if you dive into the Clone Wars series and Rebels and all that sort of extended stuff, and you can make up for anything with your imagination.
Right. And your top 5 all-time bands.
Well, artists. So
artists.
Bill Frisell. Let's say The Living End, just to go random. This is so hard. Those two have been huge influences on me. Robin Ford, Charlie Hunter. Now I'm lost. Now I've got nothing else.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And finally, promotions, and any endorsements that you want to talk about to finish up on?
No, I just, I have my new album coming out on August 7, which is called Unify. And that's it.
All right, Adam. Thank you very much for your time, mate. I really do appreciate it. I know you're a busy man. And good luck with the new release. And
thank you, Craig.
make sure you come back when it's all starting up again. You're playing some live music.
Totally, man. Thanks, Craig.
All right, cool. Not a problem. Have a good day. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
Bye, bro.